So welcome back, and if you remember in my last week's video I showed you how I roughly plastered the wall behind these 3D wall panels, because this used to be the access to the kitchen. We had a really crappy kitchen, and I got a quote in from a local plasterer who wanted to charge me over £300 for 3 sections like this, and just to cover some chased cables. And I know that my parents pay somebody £80 for a whole wall, or other people pay plasterers by the day, like 120 quid for the day. So I didn't think that was reasonable, so I decided to take it on myself. And it was really easy to get it to look like this. I promise you there's no skill involved. I'm definitely a newbie at doing any kind of DIY things. I just do some research and I have patience and I've got some time. But the annoying thing is there's almost absolutely no information on these panels, so I thought I'm going to show you how I did it. So keep on watching. So the first thing that I did was get the wall ready to glue the panels, and it really depends on the surface you've got. So I've got 2 totally different examples here. I've got painted breeze blocks, which wasn't a completely level surface because it used to be a doorway, and some exposed bricks that definitely were level, but I didn't need to worry about where the bricks joined. So I removed everything from the walls, and any loose surfaces I needed to chip away and fill them later. But I actually patch plastered the big chunks that were missing, but that's a whole separate job, so I'll leave a link to that video if you've got an uneven wall. But it just needs to be roughly level for this to work. And I gave everything a wash with sugar soap. So once everything's washed and dried, I don't recommend skipping planning where your tiles are going to be. Now this space you see here, the tiles didn't quite fill the whole area. So originally I used some string to find a centre line to cut the tiles in half. But eventually I thought, you know what, I don't need to do this. I'm just going to use some trim either end. And my spaces didn't have skirting boards, so I used that to my benefit, and I made sure when I installed them, they were completely level with a spirit level. So I used that as a basis to make sure my tiles were completely straight all the way from the bottom to the top. Plus I knew I'd be left with a funny cut at the top, which would be less visible to the eye, and I could fill that with cork later. So in the doorway, where I had a bit of gap either side, I needed to make sure the tiles were absolutely dead centre. And a big shout out to a company called Mano Mano who sent me these panels to review. They're an online company that sells so many different products, not just these, but the 3D panels come in loads of different types, and I went for the wavy version because I felt it would be easier to match up in an awkward space. Now for the fun part, you will need a lot of glue for this. I must have used about 12 tubes for 3 strips of wall, but it's also going to depend on your wall surface. And by that I mean you may have to glue the wall and the panel separately for it to stick better. I actually found this bricked area much easier to glue compared to the freshly plastered wall, even though I added a PVA solution on that as well. And I just added glue on the back of the panels on every bit that would touch the wall and just applied it in a zigzag fashion. Don't worry, I'll leave all the links to the things that I'm using below. And I did wear gloves with this just in case it stuck to me. And then just lined it up and just pressed down with my hands, going over every indent. But make sure you're rubbing off any excess glue as you go, because unfortunately it will show when you paint it later, and it is very easy to get glue on the gloves and accidentally get it on the panels. So make sure you've got plenty of cleaning wipes at hand as well. And I just repeated that until I got to the top where I got to tricky areas. Now cutting them is really easy. It's actually made out of bamboo, and it's like a thin compressed card, but it's stronger than cardboard. So using a ruler, I just measured where I roughly needed to cut them, drew a line using spirit level because it was the longest thing I had, and used a sharp Stanley knife to slowly and carefully cut the piece out that I needed. And then, like the rest, just glued that into place. And then it was time for the trim, and I had 2 different areas I needed it for. So luckily there's so many different types of trims that you can buy. For the doorway I used one that was roughly 1 inch wide. For the end of the hall I used one that was about 6mm wide. And using some more adhesive I just glued these into place. But I have to say my favourite glue for this project was no nails. By the time you get through so many bottles your hand is going to really hurt. And this one was so easy to apply. So I've now left it a day for these wall panels to dry, and I'm going to start caulking these seams here. I've got some decorators white, I'm just using white caulk, but I'm not going to caulk these trims here because I think that'd be better after I've painted these. And to get rid of any seams, I used some white caulk and I just applied it in between the gaps, then wiped any excess off with a damp cloth. It did start to rub like cardboard would, so I just took my time and went easy on it. And just kept wetting my finger to go over it
just so it could blend in and it wasn't visible. And because my bungalow is very small, I really needed to paint with a bright colour, and I went for Dulux's Easy Care Washable Brilliant White, because we go for walks every morning and we're very good at splashing mud everywhere when we get in. So this I couldn't skip, but you can paint it with whatever colour you want. And I actually painted the wooden trim with this as well. I know that's not really the right thing to do, you're best off using primer, but I wasn't planning on touching these surfaces, so I couldn't see the problem. And then because this is actually the first time I've used a colour other than magnolia on my walls, I did try and cork right at the end before I added trim, and for that I just don't have the patience or skill. So once I'd painted everything, I painted the trim separately, glued it to the wall, I wiped any excess glue as I went, and then corked the inside of the trim, not the outside which was touching the painted wall.
So a huge thanks to Mano for sending me these panels, but like I said before, this is absolutely not a sponsored video. It took a long time just to get all the finishing details around me, because once I got this into place, I couldn't stop myself. I thought, oh, it looked great with the colour next to it, it looked great with a carpet, painted ceiling, curtains, and I just went to town. So this is the happiest I've ever been in my hallway, and we've now got like a mini living room going on just behind the camera as well. So I'll leave a link to the panels below if you want to check them out, but like I said before, it's not fire retardant. I don't think it's great for kids personally. They are hollow, but there's just two of us and it just suits us down to the ground, and it's not an area that we're going to touch much because we just walk past it. So don't forget to give it a like and subscribe if you like this video, and hopefully I'll see you in my next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.